Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm back with the second episode of my podcast, Hear Me Out with Sandy. When I left off from the first one, I wish you well and I hope you're doing fantastic. But then, we're on a journey, I'm just doing this on a step-by-step basis. So I'll continue with my story. The high school days, the youth growing up to become a man. And here I am on the university campus going to high school, living with my brother. and this lesson I learned early also helped me a lot. And in Ghana in those days, and most of our clothes were made by tailors. So you go buy your material, you take it to a tailor, and then he'll sew for you. I remember one day, I go to my senior brother. I said, brother, I need some money to go buy some material to make some dress. The guy looked at me and said, you, I've never heard you come and say, give me some money to go buy books. It's always this peripheral thing that don't mean anything. Say you're going to buy some books. Man, I was humbled by that experience. And from that day forward, I started my reading. I was about 14, 15 then. I started doing my reading. So I started reading a lot of literature, Macbeth, Shakespeare, Chaucer, Jane Austen, and then a lot of the New York bestsellers. That's where my reading started. And it had a profound impact on me up to this day. So by being humbled, I realized that reading was one of the most important things one can have, and he directed me in the right place. And then I remember also in high school, year one, because of what he instilled on me, because I look at him as being such a highly educated guy, when we had an exam, he always wanted to excel. I remember one time we had a French exam, and I believe I had about 96 out of 100. I was so upset that I couldn't get 100. Very upset for a long time. I said, but what's your problem? You did 96, you did okay. Anyway, that's the foundation of me putting a premium on education. But then as I've grown up, I've had a different take on what education is. For me, I equate education as to insurance policy. And I explain when I start talking about entrepreneurship and my journey into the business world. But education is important. Education is not only going to school to study, to say get a degree. Education can be learning a skill that can keep you the rest of your life. Even if you are a barber and you learn how to cut well, it's a career. It can keep you well for the rest of your life. So whatever you do, get educated. Do the best you can so you excel. And you only get value, you only get paid for the value that you provide. So if you're educated, if you're a skilled person providing some service, be the best you be. That will take you far. So yeah, here I'm high school. And this high school was at the university campus. And it was one of the better schools because we had a lot of lecturers at the university teaching there, and they brought a lot of good teachers to help teach. I remember that the school we started couple of years, 2 years before I entered us in Form 1 or first year in high school. I remember that the population was so small that they used to bus students from the city to the school. So it had a mix of people, you interact with a lot of people. So it was a very good experience. And then a couple of years, 3 years later, my brother then had to travel to the UK for further education. So I had to transfer from the high school to one of the premium high school in Ghana called Osei-Agyeman School. Osei-Agyeman became very important in my life because that's where I established my claim to fame in athletics. Osei-Agyeman is an all-boys school, very dynamic, very great people. And in that school, growing up, everybody had to have something we call guy name. So you have a guy named, so every student Odo has a guy named. And this school was so unique, it's still unique in Ghana, where every student is identified by a number, just like a social security number in the US. Every student is identified by a number. And the number became significant because with the school number, one can tell what year you entered, what class you're in. And it's been a tradition that has been going on all this time. So here I'm at Opokwai, and then I had really realized that I could run. And then my intro into athletics was, they had a national competition at their capital, Accra capital, and every year schools were asked to pick some of their best students to go and compete. Now, my school had qualified for the relay team, the 4x100 relay team. So they had to have 5 runners, 4 sprinters and 1 reserve. Of course, I haven't established myself yet, so I wasn't part of the team. So it came that they had to pick out the reserve, and they had to toss a coin between me and one of my classmates. I won, so I became the reserve. So I joined the team to the capital for the competition. I sat out there on the beach, on the benches, watching what's going on. And I told myself, but I can run. I can run. So that was where I got my motivation that if these people can do that, I can do that. And also in high school, athletics was so big. We had something called intercollegiate athletics. So every year, that's where all the high schools within the region would come to the stadium and to compete. And my closest rival was at our rival school, Prempeh. His name was Santo. So my guy name was Sandy Lee. So Sandy became the nickname. So at the stadium, it would be always like Sandy Santo, just a crowd. Anyway, we went to the stadium. By the way, let me give kudos to our dearly departed coach, Mr. Fenn. He really nurtured me to become the sprinter that I became. He gave me the fundamentals. He worked with me. I trained hard, and I learned a lot of lessons in athletics that are still with me. So this Santo here and this school had been tormenting our school for a long time. So when we went to the stadium to start running the first day, even the other guys in my high school didn't know that I was going to emerge such a good star. So we went to the stadium. The trials, we have the trials in the morning, and then in the afternoon we go for the finals. So at the trials, man, I was blowing everybody out in the 100 meters, 200 meters. So the school got excited. So it normally takes 2 days to finish the competition. So the first day at the competition, at 100 meters, my biggest rival, he was a reigning champion. It was a very tight race. It was close finish. They couldn't determine the winner that day, so the next day they declared the winner. So I got so puffed up that the next day after we were going to run the 200 meters. Man, by this time my schoolmates have gotten so excited that they started something we call Insamamu, where the student body will meet and then they come out with songs, things that excite you, So in the stadium, the 200 meters, I was so pumped up that when the gun went off, I took off, and man, that was so far ahead that my competitor had to stop running or just ease up because there was no way catching up. So that was the beginning of Sandy as a sprinter. And people used to like it because, looking back, that made me like a star. If you were a big star in athletics, then you were big. And it made you popular among the women, the girls in the secondary school, the boys. So I became extremely popular in the nation. And that's why I started competing for my nation, Ghana. And I believe that was 1968. Just a young boy, I got invited to the national team. And I stayed on the national team till after the 1976 Olympics in Montreal. And then I was a very young man then, had a career working as a banker. I finished, I was in graduate school then. So what I learned during those days is that you have to, once you know that you're good at something, you pursue it. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time management. You have to know how to manage your time because, see, By so doing, you have to have time to practice and practice. We have to have time to study and compete well. You have to have time to be by yourself. Remember I talk about being by yourself. Those things become very, very, very important as you grow up. And in sport, the discipline that you get comes from your ability to do things on your own. So people that know me, up to this day, they know Sandy. When you mention my name, they're equated to the prowess I have in athletics that time. And it's been good because since that day, I've done one thing, I keep exercising from that day to now. So I do my exercise regularly just to stay in shape, just to get the mind focused. And you know, exercise also helps disease. You never get sick when you're in good shape. It looks like disease is scared of exercise. And you know, I use my daily exercises for a couple of things. I use that as my time to myself. I use it to pray while I exercise. I use it to reflect on things I have to do for the day. When there's something that is bothering me or that's high on my list, those quiet time, those exercises help me. I don't know how, but that's how it happens. You're able to realize that through the exercise and time for yourself that nothing is important. Solutions come, ideas come, and able to use it to move on to be the best. So from the high school, like remember in the beginning I said that once I found out that I was a good athlete, I decided that I became a champion in high school. And I decided that I need to go to the U.S. because all my friends at that time, all the young guys, everybody wanted to go to U.S. because we had heroes. Some of the things that we enjoyed was the R&B time, you know, the great singers of the past, the Sam Cooks, the James Browns, the Wilson Pickett, the Otis Redding, the Sam and Dave, the Fats Domino, Aretha Franklin. All these people were listening to. Even at age 15, 16, 17, we were into that. So we were enamored about the U.S. So it was like, hey, got to go to U.S. to continue life. So I started looking for schools that would give me scholarship to come. Through a friend of mine who was already in the U.S., he gave me the school that I went, Eastern Illinois University in Charleston, Illinois. They offered me full scholarship from Ghana to come and go to school and continue my education. I remember I also had some offer from University of Michigan, but I never pursued it. Reason being, I have friends at Eastern Illinois, and I thought me coming from Ghana, not knowing anybody will be the best. And so I ended up Eastern Illinois, where I studied finance, where I was a champion sprinter on campus, where it was only during my time when my school won the NCAA Division II championship in my senior year in 1974. During the time that I was in school, Track and Field News ranked some of the fastest sprinters in the world. In 1973 and 74, I was ranked among the top 10 sprinters in the world. So the discipline that you get by getting up and going to practice, competing, becomes something that helps you to be your best. So competition is very critical in life. And when you compete, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but you always go by, what did I do wrong? What can I do better? And then you always focus on the next beyond, the next competition. So my athletics career was good. And then, remember I just said that I wanted to go to the Olympics even when I was young, 14, 15 years old. So I had the opportunity to go to my first Olympics in 1972 in Munich, Germany. Remember what happened there? When the Israelis, there was this terrorist came out there, and then on the games compound, and there was a big commotion with the Israelis getting killed by the Palestinians. That was the time. That was my first Olympics. I was very young then. I ran in the relay for Ghana. I ran in the 100 meters for Ghana. I made it to the quarterfinals, but I was young, so I decided right then I ran the 4x400. We made it to the semifinals. We should have been in the finals, but one of our compatriot pulled a muscle in the middle of the race. So it was sad, but I learned that most people that were winning the Olympic medals were the ones that have been there before. So I made up my mind right there and then that here I am in 72 Olympics. Let me try for the 76. And to try to do those things, that means 4 years of focus, 4 years of practice, 4 years of determination, 4 years of sacrifice. It's a 4 year sacrifice. Everybody that I run and I've been to the Olympics, they know what I'm talking about. It takes a lot of dedication, focus. So I'm fortunate that I had the opportunity. I made a team, Ghana team, for the sprints, again, 100 meters, and the relay team. Then unfortunately, when we were in Montreal 2 days before the competition, Olympic Games opened, the African countries pulled out because of apartheid in South Africa. And then I learned one of my biggest lessons then, that you're not in control of anything. You can propose, God can dispose. So all the 4 years of sacrifice, of practice, of leaving my job just so I can focus, everything came to another. I couldn't compete. And I said, wow, way of the world. I didn't get bitter. I realized that I've done the best I can. I've achieved my goal of making the Olympics. I was there. I couldn't compete. And then at the ripe age of 27, I decided to quit athletics. I was in my peak shape. So when I came back, I quit athletics. Do I have any regrets? No, because when I quit, I also, the more beyond thing, I had something ahead. I started graduate school at one of the top universities in the USA, Kellogg Graduate School of Management at Northwestern University. I've enrolled prior to the Olympics, and I was studying finance and international business at the master's level. So I said, since I've done my thing with the Olympics, what's next? I said, well, let me get my master's degree. And the reason I wanted to get and I was also working at the bank that time. I will talk about the banking later. The reason why education was important to me is that I said, it's my insurance policy. So I figured then that I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. So I said, well, let me get this degree from this prestigious university and I'll go try my entrepreneurial career. If it doesn't work out, I have my education to fall back on. But then it did work out, so I never had to go back looking to work for anybody else. So you plan, you have plan A, plan B, but when you're committed to plan A, you do your best to make sure plan A works. But it's always advisable to have plan B. So education became something that was important to me and I pursued it. Anything else I need to say? Oh, up to these days, I became a Hall of Famer at my university at Eastern Illinois. Up to this day, if you go to the school gym, you see my picture there. At that time, they had a competition, one competition, that was a 70-yard dash. They don't run it anymore. I ran 6.9 seconds. I think that time was the second fastest time in that race. They don't run it anymore, so things of the past. Anyway, that's how my sports career ended. Let me end here and then we continue. Thank you for listening. Please like this and subscribe. It's going to get exciting. You have a blessed day and peace.